of trade becoming very key and important, Lucy.
Ndizvo kamuri yeZimbabwe. Saka misangano iyi inenge ichifamba ichiitwa munzira dzakasiyana siyana. Mangwana tiri kutarisira kuti kuchatanga nemusangano we-standing committee of senior officials and finance committee unenge uinasa chigaro vari zvakare munyori mukuru mubazi rinoona nezvekudyidzana kwenyika nekutengeserana nenyika yeZimbabwe vanovaiwa ambassador Albert Chimbindi ndivo vanenge varisa chigaro wemusangano uchaitwa mangwana. Zimbabwe ichange iri sachigaro zvakare weumwe musangano uchaitwa mangwana masikati we-SADC Council of Ministers mangwana masikati apo iZimbabwe izabe ingumcinisihlalo njalo womhlangano onalo. Imhlangano iyabe lokhu iqhubekela phambili isenziwa kubunjwa kusakhiwa kukhulunyiswana ukuthi ikuphi okumele kwenziwe ikakhulu nxa kukhangelane lendaba zezomvikela. Yizo ke indaba ezixoxiswana ngazo indaba zokukhumisana umlotha. Sibona ke ukuthi kule mission yeSADC eyathunyelwa khona ngale ngase DRC ukuthi iyabona ukuthi kuyini okuthatha indawo kunengi okwenzakalayo ngakhona ngale ngokunjalo konke khona lokho kuzaxoxiswana emhlanganweni yona leyi. Kunjalo nje kuyabe kubunjelwa umhlangano omkhulu ozayenziwa owama heads of state and government ozaqhubeka musi we Wednesday khonapha etalele parliament.
And speaking to the events that will be taking place on Wednesday, Lucy, with the SADC Organ Troika Summit meeting Wednesday, we are told Wednesday morning, and with the heads of state and government who will be sitting and convening in the afternoon on the same day. They will also be deliberating, especially with regards to the recommendations from the preceding committee sessions. As you all know, you did take through the viewers of the program from today. We did know that there were certain issues with regards to preparations of documents that were done earlier today, and we will also await to hear what will be proceeding from that. But the meeting on Wednesday will basically discuss the political situation in the region. But since it is also an extraordinary summit, it is specifically focusing on that SADC mission to DRC, where mandate expires December.
And Zimbabwe regai tikutendai panguva dzino silibonge tumulombe ikapati ikujatana askebo Patrice regai tikudzosere kuma studios edu ku Pockets Hill.
Thank you so much there, of course, to that live update from Monica Chanda and Lucy Ngosolo at Mount Hampton, of course, highlighting the significance of the SADC Extraordinary Summit currently taking place. A whole host of issues are looking towards being addressed. Looking forward, of course, to the ministerial committee, which will be meeting a bit later on during the course of this late afternoon to highlight a few of the topical areas of concern, most notably, of course, the security situation within the Democratic Republic of the Congo, extending to the Cabo Delgado region within Mozambique, and then also looking at the electoral processes that have been taking place within the SADC region during this particular period. And of course, this being significant for Zimbabwe, holding, of course, the SADC chairmanship role within the SADC region, contributing, of course, towards innovation and industrialization. Speaking, of course, towards Zimbabwe's trajectory, rather, of a vision at 2030, which looks to see Zimbabwe becoming an upper middle income society. Now let's have a look at more of our highlights that come from the founding fathers of SADC.
This month, delegates gather for another SADC summit here in Harare, Zimbabwe. Following the footsteps of our founding fathers, the regional leaders, visionaries who paved the way for cooperation and development. Now I am Kurtley Gwendi, and I welcome you to the story of the SADC founding fathers, a group of individuals who have shaped the craft, chart, and art of African history, bringing together their remarkable leadership skills and visionary power. We take a look at their contributions as well as the lives they have changed through their stories. Now, as the regional summit draws to a close, we honor, celebrate, and salute the lives of these founding fathers and their immense contributions. Julius Nyerere, Tanzania's first president, was a key member of the formation of SADC, and of course, a proponent of African socialism and unity. He played a role with regards to Tanzania's independence itself, and was the first host in 1980 of the SADC summit.
Some of the problems we are now handling in Africa, some of the mess we're trying to clean up in the continent, we have inherited. The mess of the borders we have inherited.
Kenneth Kaunda, Zambia's first president, was also a SADC founding member. He played a vital role with regards to Zambia's independence and also was key with regards to the African liberation movement.
God is hearing me. I can never sell out Africa. Never. Not me. Not these boys here. Not these girls here. We are men and women of principle. We have done all these things in search of peace, but it has to be genuine peace, based on sincere, genuine majority rule. Anything else, you can kill us. Zambians will be born out of our blood. We'll continue to fight.
Now on to Robert Mugabe, Zimbabwe's first president, who was also very vital with regards to regional cooperation as well as economic development. He also served as the SADC chairman and also did it very well.
Carrington wanted us to decide on our own that no, we had had enough, we won't agree with this and we'll quit. But no, we knew that strategy.
Samora Machel, who was Mozambique's first president, played a key role with regards to ensuring that regional policies were maintained. He was also a founding member of the SADC.
Colonialismo é crime contra a humanidade.
Colonialism is a crime against humanity.
Não há colonialismo humano.
There is no humane colonialism.
Não há colonialismo democrático.
There is no democratic colonialism.
Não há colonialismo não explorador.
There is no non-exploitive colonialism.
Seretse Khama, Botswana's first president, remains an inspiration in the upper echelons of making sure that cooperation and regional policies were maintained as a founding father of the SADC.
I wish to say that I'm sadly disappointed with the undemocratic decision of the British government in exiling me from my country. Before I left my home, I was given an assurance by the British representatives there that I would be allowed to return. The worst I expected after the judicial inquiry was that I would be officially recognized as chief, but with a gradual adoption of council assistance. The step now taken will lead to the disintegration of the tribe and will have serious repercussions in the African continent and throughout the colored world. I'm sure the British public and all right-thinking people will not tolerate such injustice. To me, and more grievously, to my suffering people who have always been loyal to the British Crown and believed in British justice.
Hastings Kamuzu Banda, Malawi's founding father as well as a first president. He did play a very vital role with regards to the formation of SADC. At the same time, he promoted regional cooperation and ensuring issues were addressed within the region and ensuring that Malawi stands strong as an independent nation.
Will you walk out of this conference every time you hear something you don't like?
Make your own inference. You think I'm here? I told you when I came here that I came here only because of Mr. McLeod. And the minute I see that the whole thing is just repeating the same trash, all trash about economics and social this and that, do you think I have time to waste here? My people want me home. Do you understand me? Right now, they want me back home in Nyasaland. Much more important things to do than listen to trash like that.
Now, King Sobhuza II of Swaziland played a key role with regards to peacekeeping and ensuring that many nations that experience conflicts amongst each other had their issues resolved. Another founding father who left a lasting legacy. Now on to Agostinho Neto, who was a founding father of the SADC, the first president of Angola, who used his very critical diplomatic skills to ensure that backgrounds and interests of separate countries were brought together into one voice. Now King Moshosho II, the King of Swaziland, a founding father of the SADC, who ensured that there was regional cooperation and also ensured that his diplomatic skills were applied in the times of traditions, values and interests that were all put together to make the SADC.
For some of us, the year 1925 represents the origins of a kind of Pan-African Holy Trinity. In Martinique that year, we got the birth of Frantz Fanon. In the United States, we were given Malcolm X. And on the continent of Africa, the motherland herself, and in the Congo specifically, we all got Patrice Lumumba.
200 delegates to the All-African People's Conference heard a speech much to their liking by the Prime Minister of Ghana, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. He told them to aim at the United States of Africa to be formed on the USA. A small beginning was already made by the Union of Ghana and Guinea.
This spurred him on to organize nationalist rallies in his country, resulting in deadly protests that got him arrested and later released to negotiate Congo's independence.
Kwame Nkrumah made sure that he understood that. Why Congo is important for the liberation of Africa, mainly because of its geostrategic position in the heart of the continent and the resources that he has. Went back to the Congo, he mobilized thousands of people to demand independence, and his fight with his comrade was successful. In 1960, specifically on June 30th, 1960, Congo gained its independence.
6e mois de lutte, nos efforts doivent tendre actuellement à liquider tous les vestiges du colonialisme qui faisaient la honte du XXe siècle, notamment par la suppression sans délai de toutes les traces de discrimination raciale et des lois injustes instaurées sous le régime colonial.
Independence came with lots of problems, including a political divide and an unapologetic Belgium. The Belgian King's speech on Congo's Independence Day praised the developments under colonialism.
L'indépendance du Congo constitue l'aboutissement de l'œuvre conçue par le génie du roi Léopold II, entreprise par lui avec un courage tenace et continuée avec persévérance par la Belgique. Elle marque une heure décisive dans les destinées, non seulement du Congo lui-même, mais je n'hésite pas à l'affirmer, de l'Afrique tout entière.
Du roi Baudouin, qui nous rappelait comment la Belgique nous a sortis de l'esclavage, comment ils ont lutté pour nous sortir des maladies du sommeil et patati patata. Ça a été un choc. Nous ne nous attendions pas à ce rappel malheureux parce que nous estimions que le roi Baudouin n'avait plus de leçons à nous faire ce jour-là.
It was on that day, that famous day in 1960, where he gives his speech in front of the Belgian leadership, depicted in of course, historical documents and even cinematically, where he, to some, sealed his fate by announcing his intent to break the colonial ties from the West.
Lumumba, who had not been scheduled to speak, delivered an impromptu speech that reminded the audience that the independence of the Congo had not been granted generously by Belgium.
À ce moment-là, Lumumba se lève, qui n'était pas programmé comme devant parler à ce moment-là. Il se lève et il parle.
De l'indépendance, aujourd'hui victorieux, je vous salue au nom du gouvernement congolais. Midi et soir, parce que nous étions des nègres. Nous avons connu que la loi n'était jamais la même, selon qu'il s'agissait d'un blanc ou d'un noir. Qui oubliera les fusillades, les cachons furent brutalement jetés, ceux qui ne voulaient plus se soumettre au régime d'injustice, d'oppression et d'exploitation.
Most European journalists were shocked by
that today we will not remember that. So as you read his speech or hear his speech, the first sentence of his speech is to commemorate those who came before him.
Combattants de l'indépendance, aujourd'hui victorieux, je vous salue au nom du gouvernement congolais. À vous tous, mes amis,
all the fighters for independence today victorious, I salute you. That's the first sentence, where he pays respect to our ancestors for the fight, remind the Congolese of the struggle that took us today, and then saying that the future of Congo is going to be bright, but we have to fight and continue to work in making Congo a better place for the betterment of Africa. That's the context. So whenever they say that seal is fake, I say he helped future generations to know the history of colonialism. If he never spoke that day, we will know that there were...
The troops were roaming the streets, all armed, and it was quite a racial problem. The mutineers were there, and they had matiti, that's bushes on their helmet, which was a sign that they were prepared for action, for combat. I can remember one yelling, "Venez, venez, sale flamand." We were all dirty Flemish. That was some expression that meant you were really bad, and we're going to kill you. More stories circulated about killing, rape, pillage, etc. It was, if you will, the Iraq of today.
Le 10 juillet, retenez bien la date, les militaires belges ont occupé l'aéroport de Njili, ici. Ils ont organisé l'agression du Congo en disant, puisque les militaires congolais mutinés se sont attaqués aux femmes, aux enfants et aux officiers, la Belgique n'avait plus aucun autre moyen de protéger ses ressortissants que de faire venir des troupes belges, le 10 juillet. 10 jours après.
Lumumba appealed to the United
Alors c'était frustrant, c'était écœurant, c'était un appel à l'insurrection populaire. Il faut venger cela. Ce pays est à nous et je vais me battre pour lui. C'est elle qui m'a fait conduire sur le chemin du maquis, de la guérilla.
Following his assassination, he was widely seen as a martyr. The statement was released until 3 weeks later, despite rumors that Lumumba was dead.
Congo has more diamonds, more gold, more copper, more timber, more rivers, more land than any other countries in Africa. And there was fear at the time the West was fighting against the Soviet Union.
Fear in Leopoldville, as the capital was called then. These jeeps full of soldiers who were patrolling the streets, the way the streets quickly emptied at dusk. And then two very, very arrogant guys at the American Embassy who were proudly talking over drinks one evening about how this person, Lumumba, had been killed, whom they regarded, not as a democratically elected African leader, but as an enemy of the United States. And so, of course, I, as a fellow American, they expected to be happy that he'd been done away with. There was something quite chilling about that, and it stuck with me, but I think it's only in much later years that I fully realized the significance.
The killing
developed a program to assassinate Lumumba under Devlin's encouragement and management. The program they developed, the operation didn't work. They didn't follow through on it. It was to get
mines in the plantations and so on. Lumumba put that hope into words, and for that reason he was immediately considered a very dangerous figure by the United States and Belgium. The CIA issued this assassination order with White House approval, and as was said at the beginning, they couldn't get close enough to him to actually poison him, but they got money under the table to Congolese politicians who did see that he was assassinated. With Belgian help, it was a Belgian pilot who flew the plane to where he was killed, a Belgian officer who commanded the firing squad. And then the really disastrous thing that followed was this enthusiastic United States backing for the dictatorial regime of Mobutu, who seized total power a couple of years later and ran a 32-year dictatorship, enriched himself by about $4 billion, and really ran his country into the ground, was greeted by every American president with the sole exception of Jimmy Carter, who was in office during those 32 years. And he left the country a wreck from which it has still not recovered.
In 2002, Belgium formally apologized for its role overseeing the assassination of Lumumba. A staunch enemy of Lumumba and president of Katanga, Congo Independent Province, Moise Tshombe and Mobutu Sese Seko, who became prime minister after the death of Lumumba, allegedly took part in the plot.
Tshombe is the murderer of Lumumba, who was the rightful prime minister of the Congo. Tshombe is the man whose forces fought against the United Nations forces and against the United States, and despite this criminal past of Tshombe, now the United States is backing Tshombe, who has hired South African mercenaries who are hired killers to disrupt the peaceful efforts of the freedom fighters from Stanleyville to make the type of country there that they want.
Global forces, specifically the United States and its counterpart in Europe, want to control Congo's affairs and want to control the country. Mao say whoever controls the Congo controls the world. You can have a young African 34-year-old prime minister of the Congo saying no to the US to not access cobalt that they needed to use for the fight during the so-called Cold War. So the control of the land, the control of the resources is the essential reason of why he was eliminated.
Il faut que la vérité soit restituée. Il faut que la vérité soit restituée. On ne bâtit pas un pays sur la base de mensonges. Lumumba est mort, on ne sait pas trop bien comment. Kabila vient de mourir, il est mort aussi. On ne sait pas trop bien comment. Et comment un pays va se construire sans connaître la réalité sur son histoire. Moi je crois que on est mal parti. On est mal parti, très mal parti, avec des cadavres enfouis. On ne construit pas un pays avec des cadavres dans les placards de l'histoire. On est mal parti.
The Zambezi River was dammed in 1958 for hydropower generation for both Zambia and Zimbabwe. So after that, a lake was formed, and then there was room for fisheries. The communities that lived along the Zambezi River survived on fishing. So after the lake was formed, those communities were displaced, but they continued to survive on fishing. However, there were deeper waters that were created, what we call in science a pelagic niche. So when that pelagic niche was created, a fish species that occupies those deeper waters was needed. The glupade, which is the carpenter, scientifically known as the Limnothris amyodon, was introduced into Lake Kariba on the Zambian side in the 1960s. And then officially, the carpenter fishery was opened in 1974 on the Zimbabwean side.
Kariba used to be a major foreign currency earner for the country due to its tourism and fishing industry. The fishing industry was booming at one stage, and all of that seems to be now on a declining path. Speaking to Sikelela Kumpo, a businessman and now a legislator who came to settle in the town long before the carpenter came to town, paints a completely different picture.
I came in before even the carpenter was introduced in the lake. So I've seen the carpenter right from the onset as it developed and also went up in terms of their numbers. And until such a time that the people has to be facilitated to start fishing. And when they started fishing, things went so well that it was one of the major industries of the town, because people lived on the fish and also sustained themselves out of the fish.
At inception in 1974, a total of 487 tons was recorded, and it grew gradually over the years to a peak of 21,758 tons in 1990. A basketful of factors has also come to haunt this once vibrant venture. Erratic rainfall patterns, high temperatures on the lake, decline in primary food source for carpenter, overfishing and poaching are some of the major causes of the demise. Dr. Nobuhle Ndlovu, who works with Zimparks as principal and aquatic ecologist, has spent time studying these trends on the lake.
The issue of declining catches of carpenter, of the carpenter fish, there are actually a number of factors that attributed to that decline. Firstly, I would say the temperatures in the lake have been increasing. I think sometimes they go above 28 degrees. So when temperatures when temperatures are that high, they actually affect the productivity of the lake. I would say the primary food source for the carpenter fish is called zooplankton, and zooplankton feeds on algae. So when temperatures go as high as 28 degrees, the production of algae is actually affected, and then the abundance or the availability of zooplankton, which is the food source for carpenter, is also affected. So generally the productivity of carpenter is also affected by climate change. And then there have also been erratic rainfall patterns over the years. The frequency of occurrence of droughts has also increased. But we need rainfall so that the nutrient status of the lake is improved. You know, productivity of the lake actually requires nutrients, and the two main nutrients that are required for productivity are phosphorus and nitrogen. So when there are good rains, nutrients are washed into the lake, through runoff, then productivity improves. But the major source of the nutrients into the lake is actually the Zambezi River. Some studies say 80% of the nutrients that are in the lake actually come through Zambezi River. Then all these other rivers and surface runoff maybe contribute 20% of the nutrients that are required in the lake. And then there's also increase in fishing effort. The number of boats that catch carpenter have been increasing over the years, especially on the Zambian side of the lake, where they have more than 900 boats officially, instead of 225. So that increase in fishing effort also affects what we call catch per unit effort, which is what each boat gets when they go fishing.
Prior to 1980, this carpenter industry was mainly dominated by a small number of white entrepreneurs. But the coming of independence ushered in a new era which saw the number of fishing companies increasing. And as it stands, about 120 companies are now operating on the Zimbabwean side of the lake. This on its own has brought another set of challenges, which have also contributed to the decline in carpenter cages. This news crew turned fishermen for a night to get to understand the process and challenges the fishermen face on the lake. After spending the night on the lake, we managed to catch about 30 kgs of fresh carpenter. Our guide in the expedition, Mr. Stole, gave us a breakdown of what our catch meant in monetary terms.
It's less 30 kgs. So it's less 30 kgs, it's approximately 29 kgs dry. Kunzo kumarket akuna. Izvozvo. Saka zvakusina mageti takutofosa kuti tiwane diesel ka kuti toenda parenga apo pamakorokosa usvika voti $20 bond pa kg yega yega. Saka 9 times 20 180 pachadiwa oil iya, pachadiwa diesel iya, pachada munhu anonanika kunzo anobhadharwa, pekunanikira pacho panobhadharwa, anotakura wacho matemba aya transporter anobhadharwa 1.5 kgs dried kubva nawo pahub kusvika paanonanikira. Saka njuga dzacho ikarati chaidzo hadzibuda.
This left us with more questions for all the players in the carpenter industry. Lake Kariba is divided into 5 hydrological basins, namely Mlibizi, Binga, Sengwa, Bumi and Sanyati. These basins are named after the rivers that flow into the lake. Each basin has its own carrying capacity, but our survey revealed that due to the proximity of Basin 5 to Kariba town, availability of facilities makes everyone want to be housed in that basin.
Most of us, we need the Basin 5 for administration purposes, since the Basin 3 and 4, they are very far from the resources, that is the fuel and the market. And some of the boats or other operators, they cannot manage to operate from Kariba to Makui or Chalara.
Production costs seem to be higher in the other basins and everyone seems to avoid them. Women in this trade also find it hard to cope with the high production costs of the further basins.
Ndakapiwa basin 4 indiri mugaro muno mukariba. Saka machallenges andosangana nadzo kuti ndishandira kucharara ikoko hakuna kune diesel inotengwa kunoko. ndotenga diesel rangu 200 liters ndochibvisa 40 liters kubva pano pahaba kusvika kucherera kwandiroshandisa ndinge ndatosarwa nei160 40 liters dzatagoni kudhara kuzobva pachalara takuenda kwatinofishira kwacho ndinotora 30 liters dzokuenda kunoraura ndonoraura ikoko handitenderwa futi kunanika matemba acho kwatinitaenda kure kwatinonanikira kuti ndidzoke kuhaba pada 15 liters dzokuti ndidzoke kuhaba kwandofanira kunanikira matemba ndakadangonanikira musango imomo vana vachinditorera matemba aya
isusu tiri kuchema kuti ngavatidzosewo kwedu kuno kubesen 5 ndiko kune dzimba dzedu ndo kune zvikoro ndo kune sauti dzacho dzatoshandisa ndo kunonamiwa mabhotsi acho ndo kune magrizi zvese.
ini ndachingori nechichemo nechikumbiro nebhoti rangu ndiri kumbira permit inoenderana nemubheseni mandiri muno mandiri kugara because mapemit atikapiwa ari kuita 1.2 times bank rate ndemubhesin 3 bhesini risiri kwatinogara rekumiri kure nekwatinogara ikoko kunotori nemachallenges ende ndikada kuti ndirambe ndichita business iroro ndichishandisa bhesini yekumiri bhesini 3 zvotonditira loss ende zvakatongofanira ndibhera ndisiye bhoti rangu ringora rakagara pahaba.
Isi tinogara muno mukariba takanopuwa mabheseni 3 taiswa kubheseni 3 ikokoko tiri kuremerwa sevanhu vasina varume kuti ndikwanise kuenda ikokoko fisherman anondivigira 4 bags pamwedzi andivigira 4 bags ina ndinashanda kundiite nadzo because diesel ndiri kutaura kuti ndotenga 400 liters pamwedzi 84,000 mushandi akandimirira ari kuda kubhadharwa neni mhuri yangu inini vana ndakungwasiya murokesheni vachifamba dzangu nherera because ndichada kuti ndiende ikoko ndinopinda mvura nditarise vanhu vari kuraura nekuti mafishameni munhuwo arikuda kuti mhuri yake irarame iye anenge akutotengesawo matemba iwawo achiitirawo mhuri yake kuti dini irarame.
There is need for a robust developmental agenda along the lake to make the other basins more lucrative. Roads, schools, hospitals, and all other facilities to decongest Basin 5 as it is now susceptible to poaching.
These carpenter operators don't only deal with parks, which is the regulatory authority. They also deal with local authorities. When they come out of the lake with their fish, they need to process their catches. They dry them. They are given land by councils. So some of the land that is used by these carpenter companies actually belongs to local authorities. So the development of these areas, other areas along the lakeshore, may require a multi-stakeholder approach. The Ministry of Transport has to be involved as well for the construction of roads. The Ministry of Health has to be involved for the construction of health facilities along the lakeshore. Ministry of Education for the construction of schools along the lakeshore. So it's not an issue that can be dealt with by Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife Management Authority.
Access into a fishery is through a permit which stipulates the basin one has to operate in and the number of boats allowed. A number of issues have been raised regarding the issuance of the permits and the distribution of the same according to the territory.
A very big challenge is that kuna munhu one kana 10 kana 20 maboats. Opu ma permits ari 20 munhu ye. Apo ma permits ari 20 ndiye ane mukana wokufisha kuno. Ini le boat one wondu kutanga kusumuka u. Ndio munaiswa ukure koko. Hakuna accommodation, hakuna matemba, hakuna kana service station. Saka zvoma zvatanga kukurwadza izvo. Yakagwa kushiyanisa kuti kati company nekambani itewo kana kuti 3 maboats tokwana tese kati munhu individual individual itewo 2 maboats pamunhu topowo mapermits aenda nemaboats iwayo. I don't think the basin medu mungaite overcrowded.
We are appealing to the national parks and the government in particular to have the equity distribution of permits that is according to the basin, and also to in a reduction of the prices of the permit. Of course, we know that we are facing the challenges, but we want the Zimbabwe National Parks and the government in particular to readdress the prices of the permits as before, because previously we used to pay at 100 RTGS per month. Now it seems they are now rating 100 US to RTGS.
There is an outcry amongst the operators regarding the issuing of permits. most operators are using other people's permits whom they claim to be permit barons. And in most cases, these permit barons do not own even a single boat. They are said to be charging as much as an equivalent of 2 bags of carpenter per month, which the operators say is exorbitant considering the current low catches being experienced in the lake.
You find out kuti munhu ana mvura boat asi permit anayo inogona ngene 15-10 years achirendesa. Izvo vandizita anenge akaiwana sei.
Vari benefita ndo vari kuwema permits. Izvo hatachati kubenefita. Kuti papera kumwedzi mari anochaja akawandisa. Ichatawana example anochaja mari 2 bags. 2 bags watisa matembe 2 bags it's almost 3,000. Izvo hapachati kwasa kuwana toshandira iyi.
The cost for one to get a permit is $1,200 per year. The fishery operators feel this has to be revised downwards in accordance with the trend in the lake where low catches are now the order of the day.
Inini seizvo zvizvi ndine 2 maboats angu ari kunzi ana mapemiti. 2 maboats aya asina mapemiti ari kuda 24,000. Inini pamwedzi ndiri kubata 500 kg dzamatemba. Ndinoiwana kupi mari yacho handina kwandinoiwana. Because zviri kubuda mudhamu izvo zvizvi kana mapinda mumvura mukaona zviri kuitika muri kubatikwa makota, half tray. Ivo sekufunga kwaita kubva makare kwainzi kwaibatika zvikuru mukati memvura umu. Izvo zvitasai muno mvura iri kupera hakuna chichabatika vanhu vakungofisha mumapoaching areas. Hamuna chichabatika zvakadaro. 500 kg idzi hadzindibudisiri 12,000 iyoyo. And 12,000 inonzi inoexpire muna December. Kureva kuti January ndakutanga kubhadhira 12,000. Ndinoiwana kupi hapana nokuti ndiri kubata 500 kg kana zviita tinokutaudzai mabhuku atiri kunyora zvinhu zvedu marecords edu ezvese macosts.
The chairman of the Kariba Fish Rig Association feels that if the issues raised by the fishery operators are not addressed, the future of the industry is heading for disaster.
Tiri kuona kuti kana situation ikaramba yakadai nokuoma kwairi kuita kubudiswa kuitwa mapermits nekurema kwazviri
kuti we don't have penalties, because then the minute we have penalties then everything else inodzoka kumashure. Our penalties are very steep. Last time I checked there were about 12,000 or 16,000 for one boat. So if we are able to migrate into areas arubatika hove at any time, then we sort of have a better average throughout the whole year, regardless of what time it is, because kana kuno Kariba sirubatika muna July, August, then there's an area arubatika muna July, August. There's no way kuti tingati everywhere within the lake has kubatika at all. In terms of averages, there's always a place that is a better average. Lately we've faced issue of fuel, not just kuti lack of it, but you understand kuti for in 9 marigs per day I use about 200 liters. Vanotengesa ma fuel, they will tell us kuti they want probably half cash, and you know kuti right now it's next to impossible. Allow us kuti tiwano some kind of preference for fuel. We've been in the industry for probably 20-21 years. It's a small town, so they know us, but at the same time we still face more challenges that can be avoided. If we can have a service station 1 or 2 that's supplied with fuel, National Parks knows how many boats we have in the lake. So in terms of even just knowing how much in terms of liters they don't need for the week or for the 2 weeks, for the month, they know. So if he can get, or if other players or Mama service station can get a special permit, a fuel that caters for Matemba, that helps us a great lot, because sometimes we end up having to travel or Chirund to go and look for fuel.
The carpenter industry in Kariba seemed to be plagued by a number of challenges, from climate change, poaching to administrative. Over the past 10 years, the total tonnage per year has gone down from 12,157 to 6,990 tons. Tachivei Murombo has been in the industry for over 7 years and has witnessed it going down.
Hobe pari zvino nokuti ndine 7 years ndiri mudamu rino riri H8 kureva kuti ndiri kutarisa kuti mabatiro ataita kumashure nepazvavaiko zvino zvatisiyanei. Dambudziko ratiri kuona ranyanya kuitika nderekuti hongu mvura ingapere, but ndinoona kuti matemba akapochwa kwenguva yakati rebei nekuda kwezvikonzero zvekuti hongu pakisi yakanga ichikontrora, asi zvimwe zvacho mukukondrora kwacho zvanga zvisina udzamu hwakanyanyisa nenyaya yekuti vaipinda mukati vachinopocha vakanga vasingarwadziwe nemutongo pavaipiwa kuti ivo vasazoende kunopocha.
The fishermen feel that the regulatory board, Zimpax, needs to work more with them so as to keep the problem of poaching and fishing in undesignated areas, and the need to put markings clearly so that the fishermen can see clearly at night.
Mune anoitwa maboy, mune demarcation irimo inoti uko ku poaching area uku ndo kwatinoraurira. Saka taikumbira isusu kune national parks sevanhu vatinoshanda nawo kuti dai vaikwanisa kutiisirawo maboy anoratidza kuti apa ndipo pamuganhu uku musaende uku endai, nekuti nekupera kwaita mvura uku zvinhu zvakutinetsa kuti tinyatsozive kuti ndepapi chaipo chaipo nekuti mvura yapera.
Mashandiro edu pakuraura ashanduka uye zvakarevo vateerera mutemo weparks wekuti mabhoti arege kupinda kupoaching area, uye zvakare nenyaya yekuisa zvinhu zvino maevidence zvinooneka kuti munhu azive kuti akuda kudarikira boundary kana kuti kwete, nokuti hapana chinoratidza kuti boundary, nokuti panoshanda makomo tingati maresources ekuti akavapo kudhara semamountains neturukova. Saka usiku you can't see kuti wadarika chigomo because kunenge kune rimwe unogona kungozerikana watoita se watova kumire watova mupoaching area. Saka nekuda kwemameters iko zvinezvi mvura yapera zvakanyanyisa, saka nzvimbo dzese dzaakufanana mameters kusiri kupoaching area kwakufanana nekupoaching area. Saka izvo ndo rimwe dambudziko ratakusangana naro pakushanda kwatakuita, kuti tichaziva kuti tichamira takaita sei mvura yapera zvakutonetsa.
Dialogue will go a long way in educating fishermen on conserving the resource that makes the socio-economic fabric of their livelihoods.
Tatine tariro yekuti national parks iwane mukana wokugarawo nesu pasi ichirairidza maringe nekushanda kwemumvura, nesuwo tichivaonesawo matambudziko atichisangana nawo, so that tinokwanisa kubuda nemuono mumwe chete unochengetedza zviwanikwa zvedu kuti tisarasikirwe, tive neramangwana rakajekeswa.
Lake Kariba provides food security for the communities on the lake shores of Zambia and Zimbabwe. It also contributes to the gross domestic product of both countries. Alignment of laws of these two countries is long overdue.
There exists a protocol which was signed back in 1999 between Zambia and Zimbabwe on how to share the fishery resources of Lake Kariba. But the implementation is still going on. However, there are efforts by the Zimbabwean government to engage Zambia on how to share the fishery resources and also how to regulate the effort that is applied into the carpenter fishery for the sustainability of the fishery.
A number of studies on the lake and fisheries have been carried out and have come up with recommendations to save the fisheries from extinction.
The total number of boats, which is the maximum sustainable number, that the number of boats that the lake can sustain, be 500, with 275 on the Zimbabwean side, where there is 55% lake surface area, and 225 on the Zambian side, where there is 45% lake surface area of the lake.
The future of Lake Kariba fisheries hangs in the air, with everyone praying for good rains despite the climate change that will see the dam levels rise again. In the interim, serious water management strategies have to be implemented and balance between power generation for the two countries and the economic viability of the lake.
Proper water resources planning is required, but that's a concern for the Zambezi River Authority, who are the ones who manage the dam levels. They allocate water to ZESA and to ZESCO on the Zambian side for hydropower generation. So to maintain good water levels and also to maintain what are called environmental flows, to sustain the aquatic habitats, there may be need for proper water resources planning in the future, given the climate change challenge that we are all facing.
A lake-wide hydroacoustic survey needs to be done to determine the abundance and biomass of carpenter in the lake. This will enable the authorities to make informed decisions regarding the utilization of the carpenter resource. This is just one of the measures that can bring hope to the future of the carpenter industry.
Before the coast of Hawaii, an unbelievable event took place. A wild dolphin asked a diver for help, primarily directed to the manta rays, the giant mantas. Mrs. Wing will not only report about them in this documentation, but also about the one-of-a-kind experience with the dolphin rescue.
Mrs. Wing, you moved to Hawaii 18 years ago. What do you do there?
I started as a photographer and specialized in underwater photography. I live on the Hawaiian island called the Big Island, and there I film animals underwater.
Are these any particular animals?
Yes, I specialize in manta rays or devilfish. They're also called that, and I've also been filming dolphins for years.
Perhaps many people don't know at all what a manta ray is. Could you briefly explain the kind of animal it is?
Well, there's the stingray, and it's very, very well known. A few years ago, in 2006, there was an accident with Steve Irwin. He was called a crocodile hunter. He died from being stabbed by a stingray, and this is often confused with manta rays, which are actually very different. They belong to the same family of rays, but are much bigger and eat different food. There are really a lot of differences.
Aren't you afraid when such a 5-meter wide animal approaches you?
Well, when you know that these animals have neither stinger nor teeth, that they can't bite, that they have nothing that could hurt a person in any way. And basically, I've never experienced an animal underwater that was aggressive or wanted to bite me. I always see it this way, that we're the ones going to them. And when there's a big shark in the water, of course, I'm a bit more cautious. But if they aren't interested in me, then they just swim by. It is we who are in their neighborhood, right? And I have no problem at all with mantas because actually they eat only plankton. They don't eat humans. The manta ray is simply a beautiful animal, and one can almost compare it with a little angel, or rather a huge angel or bird underwater. See, that swims underwater, but there's no question they're big animals.
You can say you dive practically every day, take photos, and actually devote yourself to researching the mantas.
Yes, my husband and I do this. I met my husband there, and I've actually, let's put it this way. An ecotourism has developed because at night these animals come to the lights. I have to explain that. When you turn on lights in the water, plankton is drawn to the lights, and the animals did this 30 years ago. There was a hotel, and they always had lights on, and the animals often lingered there. At some point, people said, the people that lived there, let's go into the water, and then the animals were there. It's really great. It's really a breathtaking experience to see these animals in water. And after that, people with boats said, let's take divers there. And that all started in the 1970s, and then over the years it grew bigger and bigger, and it developed into ecotourism, and that's really a great, great thing, because people are so cut off from nature. Someone once said that 50% of today's population live only in the city, are urbanized, and are happy when they see a pigeon or a rat or something like that, right? And of course, the mantas are a nature show and a really great, breathtaking experience. When you are in the water, which is not deep, it's only 10 meters deep, and then these animals, which are harmless and so big, and swim around you so very gracefully.
So what kind of feeling is it when these giant animals are swimming around you?
Well, there's one feeling that I have mostly. There are many feelings. There's a lot going on. You are underwater, and then in the water at night. Well, who goes in the water at night anyway? We have diving lamps, and the people have to, well, most of the snorkelers don't even know how to snorkel. So it's all very, very overwhelming and awesome. So it's a feeling of reverence, so that actually, first of all, you feel very small, and I'm not at all that important. The animals are here, I'm here in their world, and it's like you as a human being simply take a back seat. I'm now not the number one here, but instead the animals are the number one.
I once saw a video that the snorkelers hold on to something above that looks like a raft. They hold on to it, and the divers below are on the ocean floor. And then the mantas come and swim around, and they get very close to the people.
Well, the concept is it's about 10 meters deep. We have a long sandbank there, and the divers sit on the floor. Actually, you shouldn't sit on the floor of a reef, but it's not that, it's a sandbank. And then all the divers sit there, sometimes only 30 or 40, sometimes a few more, and they have diving lamps and shine these lamps upward. And then we have the snorkelers on the surface, and we organize the group so that everyone respectively has a guide with them. That is a snorkel guide. They have lamps that have been built into the surfboard. We took a surfboard, put lamps on it, and then the people hold on to the surfboard. What we create is light from above, lights from below in the dark night, because it's after sunset. And that, I would say Hollywood can't do this. There are lights from all sides, and then there are also silvery fish coming in between. They also want to eat the plankton. What we create is a plankton-rich environment where the fish then feed. And the manta rays have learned this classic conditioning. They swim to the light, and there's something to eat, right? It is wonderful. And of course, it's a win-win. And we're also very strict with the people. Each one has a diving teacher or a snorkel guide with him. And we simply leave the 10 meters to the animals. It belongs to them. All the snorkelers have to stay above and all the divers have to stay below. And then the animals can come into these beams of light. It's almost like having an extraterrestrial experience.
Do they react to the people? Do they perceive them?
Well, they know where we are for a very simple reason, because they have electroreception. Actually, they belong to the shark family, the manta rays. They are actually all sharks, and they know where we are. They know it. That doesn't mean that they don't sometimes touch. That can happen. A wing touches a head or so. Well, that's simply then, well, yeah, about like saying, come by again. But normally, they know exactly where the snorkelers and divers are, definitely.
They swim by very close to the people.
Yes, but that totally depends on where a diver is. And then if you have a lamp, then you could, of course, hold it up here or down here. When you hold it down low, then the animal comes closer because the feet is closer. You can also hold it down here, but then we've already experienced that the animals kind of gave a little kiss. But that's, well, that's not dangerous. It's in no way dangerous.
And there's one with such markings on its belly. We know that one, and they have different characters. The one is shy.
Yes. In any case, we see animals that have this conditioning, that simply understand that here is a safe area for them, that here no one will hunt them or even touch them. And they know that here I'll find food, and so I'll just go there. And then there are animals that don't feel so good about things. They stay more in the background. And over time, I've then also observed very many animals, or have helped to condition them, because I'm there every night with the lamps, and then they come closer and closer.
They lost their fear, their shyness. You are out in the ocean nearly every night, and surely you make wonderful films of such rituals or such dances.
Since I'm outside nearly every night with the cameras, we actually have a huge archive, and then you also get photos that you wouldn't get otherwise, in the sense that when you go diving only once and maybe see a manta ray somewhere or other, that is what most people normally see. And of course, we have a lot of mantas, and then sometimes we also have had mating dances during the dives. That's more than spectacular. And as a human being, when you see that it's like a ballet, totally beautiful to watch. It's somehow like huge birds swimming through the water. It's really very, very wonderful. When we had a pregnant manta, then every month we filmed how the belly got bigger. And they were, of course, photos that actually go into research, because otherwise that's not gathered. And that's a large part of my work, which I find very, very nice. So it enthralls and inspires me.
Now, if I've understood this correctly, manta research still has a long way to go.
We can actually say that the mantas are still mysterious. Everything in the ocean is actually rather mysterious. But let's say humpbacked whales, a lot of money has been spent already, so they know more about humpbacked whales or dolphins. All people are crazy about dolphins, and so much more is known about them. It's very hard to keep mantas alive in aquariums because they always have to be swimming, in contrast to stingrays, for instance, that lie on the floor and have a certain territory. So you can have them in huge aquariums. But the mantas, there are only 4 aquariums in the world that can keep them alive, because the aquariums have to be huge, and that's why we simply don't know much. Their habitat is underwater, and we don't yet have such an access.
Are mantas in Hawaii protected?
Well, there is a law that they may not be killed. And the fishing boats, too, when they go out, they may not kill any of them. There is a law. But only in Hawaii.
Only in Hawaii? That means that worldwide they're still hunted?
Well, every country has a different law. There are mantas in all tropical waters, and as a good example, there are 2 examples. In China, the problem is the Chinese market. They wanted it as a natural remedy and think that when certain parts of mantas are pulverized, it would be a natural remedy. That's absolute nonsense, not true at all. But that meant that in a small fishing village in Indonesia, they stabbed their mantas to death, and of course, that's dramatic. Because mantas give birth only every 2 or 3 years, and then it takes 13 months until the baby is born. So to kill this animal has really huge consequences in the ecosystem. And it turned into a nice story. The Indonesian fishing village was transformed into ecotourism. They said the fishermen had to live from something or other, so instead of slaughtering the animals, they have decided to bring tourists out there. And I think it's a win-win situation for man and for animals, because we don't do anything to the animals. They just eat the plankton. And it's not like we bring the food to them. We simply make people really aware of them and how great these animals are.
And do just the mantas come when you make these night dives, or do dolphins also come?
Well, basically, first of all, we have fish every night, but then we also had two animals that were very special experiences. One was a Hawaiian monk seal, and he came 2, 3, 5 times. But then in 2012, we had dolphins. There's a story that touched me very deeply, and I filmed a video that went around the world. It involves a dolphin, a grown animal, that had a fishing line between its mouth and its fin. And it came to the diving site with all the lights. And then you also have to remember that divers produce all these air bubbles. And that animal appealed to us. It came right up to us. And then it was rescued from this fishing line because it stayed still in front of one of the divers. And I filmed all this, and the video is unspeakable, indescribable. You really can't. Well, let's watch it. This dive took place on the Kona coast of the Hawaiian island called the Big Island. I dive there every night with the animals and filmed there. On January 13, 2013, a female dolphin swam to the diving site, which is unusual. And as a camera woman, I have to say that I'm always out there. I had to film this. I wasn't going to wait for someone to say, go film that. Of course, I was absolutely on site when this dolphin came into my angle of vision. We had seen these animals a few times, the dolphins, and you see right away that they always come in threes. 1, 2, and then comes still a third animal. I think, yeah. Then, to begin, when they checked out the diving site, and, well, then there were fish in the midst of the water, which also eat plankton, and the dolphins thought, what's that? Can you eat that, or is that something too stressful for me? What kind of animals are they? Here you can see the fish nicely that are in the midst of the water, and the dolphins then grabbed a few and ate them. But that was just some unusual moments that the dolphins were there. They were there for perhaps only 1 or 2 minutes, and then they swam away again. Of course, that was also a film, and what's very special that you film dolphins underwater, how they also jump, right? And then there's the snorkelers up there, and then you also see how mantas with dolphins, they say, oh my goodness, what's going on here? So that they do nothing at all for the moment. And you have to remember this animal that has a white spot behind its eye. We'll see that again right away. Sparklers and the air bubbles from the animals. That took place on January 11, 2013. Well, then I saw this animal, how it swam in, and I wondered, where are the other two? Because they always come in threes. And it moved very slowly, and that was already very strange. I thought something is the matter with it. But where we're very strict is that we don't touch the animals. We don't touch the mantas, and definitely not the dolphins. And here is my friend, that's Jason, a diving teacher. He swims somewhat closer and takes a look. I just simply filmed. I simply wondered and filmed and let the camera keep rolling. You don't just stop, right? It simply keeps on going, yes, and for once the mantas didn't matter at all. They were in the background eating their plankton. Then the animal swam away from me, and I thought, I won't catch up, so I'll just wait and see. Then I also switched off the camera and for 15 seconds filmed something else. I looked to the right, and there comes the dolphin again approaching me. And then, oh yeah. From its body language, I thought, what's going on here? And then it swam toward the other bright light. Greatest situations. The man told me he needed some scissors, see, and turned away a bit. And the animals simply stayed there and waited. Of course, you can now see how he turns away, and the dolphin says, no, 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 you stay here, stay here. As if it were a trained animal, but this is now a wild animal, and actually it's incredible that it knows exactly where the solution is for its problem. And we really have to say that we were truly lucky that it went to that diver, because he also had a kind of scissors with him underwater, and he then started to cut them away. See it? And then he was also allowed to take hold of it with no problem at all. Of course, I was directly behind them. I didn't stop filming at all, stayed very close. And the animal, as if it had also known it should stay near me, that we somehow stay together, because I saw it then opened up, and the animal, oh, yes, that's good, that's how we want it. And then the diver looked again, and there was still a very small... And comes the great surprise. It goes to the surface, breathes, and then comes back to the same diver. Then my friend Jason came back into the picture, and the other rescue diver was also there again, and he let the animal come so close again and tried to get the last hook out. That's now Masa, a Japanese diving teacher out here, and Jason comes back into the picture soon and also tries it. It's really incredible how still it stays. That normally doesn't happen at all, that a wild animal says, "Help me, help me." So now Jason comes in too, and it holds still again. It also turns itself around. But Jason didn't, well, he wanted to cut it away again, but then the dolphin said, "No, that was not enough help. Many thanks. Goodbye." And then it swam away. That was a total of 7 minutes in a rescue operation, and, well, yeah. And then we wondered if the animal would come again. And we also gave it a name. We called it Notch. Earlier I mentioned the white field behind the eye. And we had seen this animal already a few times before, and then we rescued it. And now the question was, is everything now okay for it? And 14 months later we saw it again. It was not merely seeing it again, it was an incredible experience. We were way out. Here you can also see the proof that it's the same animal. We were in the water with 5 people, and here you see how blue the water is. There was no reef there. We were 2 or 3 miles away from the coast, and the dolphin made such sound very loudly and swam around the people. And there comes the situation. It swims deep down and makes such turnings, twisting around. We've never seen that before. And I've been in the water with dolphins many, many times. It twists, goes down deep, and then it comes up again, still twisting, goes up for air, and is directly by the people again. We can interpret this differently, that it was really glad to see people, but this, well, the actual reason that he had was perhaps that we disturbed him a bit. He was actually mating, performing his courtship display. There are 2 males and a female, and when you see this, it's so gentle how this animal lifts up the female, and actually we had experienced the mating dance. And we can really say that the rescue was a total success, for he can now continue to mate and put little dolphins into the world. That was more than breathtaking, and it was meant to be that we see him again. So, really, a wonderful experience.
What actually is the intention of your work?
Well, what really fulfills me is that I bring people back to nature again. And of course, where I work is a paradise. It's very hard work, but I'm always with people who want to go back to nature. And then it's such a spectacular, breathtaking experience to go into the water, whether it's now with dolphins or now particularly in the water with the mantas at night. The people really get another attitude. It's a change of awareness that man is simply not number 1 on this planet. It's very clear that we human beings also have to take a step back. And in my work, I have the possibility to communicate or not with people, also to show. It's actually true that it touches them so much that they change their opinion. And that's very difficult with people today. We all have our opinions. This is how it should be. And that's a great thing that fulfills me very much. All animals are living beings. They also have souls. I also want to speak for the animals. That's very important to me. Considering where I come from and where I grew up, I never would have thought I would want to speak so passionately for the animals. And so many people actually go the wrong way.
Mrs. Wing, do you see a chance for humankind on this planet?
I think man is simply, well, most people see it this way. The planet is here for me. The planet is for the human beings. The earth is here for human beings. And I think that this was not the original idea, that one put so many animals on the planet or developed them. And it's very clear that harmony must follow here. When you now think about what we eat as human beings, there are already many movements that also make the following clear. 20 or 30 years ago, one ate meat once a week, and that was totally sufficient. And now it's 7 days a week, morning, noon, and evening, that we consume meat in some form or other. That has to change. The tendency has to very clearly come that less meat is consumed. You have to think about the fact that things are so complex, also with the global warming and all the carbon dioxide and methane emitted by this factory farming, etc., etc. It's very complex. But as we now are doing things, it won't work. The game is over. So we can really say this, and we have to really find solutions, and not only think up solutions, but also implement them and follow through with them. And I think that the greatest thing that we have to do, and basically we are doing this now, is to inform people. We Germans naturally grew up more with the concept of sustainability. We've always had this topic. I also studied engineering in order to protect the environment. And on the whole, I now see with my work more and more Americans, they're getting it. There are merely there are limits. Sustainability must take place. The question now is how long we need for this, because we're already in a race. Because many animals will die out during the next 20 years if we don't really get going. 20 years ago, we said, we'll see in 20 years. Now we actually can no longer say we'll see in 20 years, because in 20 years, 50% of these animal species will have already died out. And I hope that more and more people simply get it and make efforts. I think that most people do not make enough effort. It's still, man is the most important being on the planet. But that's certainly not so. The earth can exist without us. Nature can also exist without us. There's no question at all.
According to WHO, the definition of health includes 3 factors. It includes the physical health, the mental health, and the social health.
What it means to be mentally well in the workplace is somebody who has high energy, somebody who is much more productive than somebody, but the reverse is also true.
The people that are in HR are not trained psychologists to be able to identify, because there are tools and methods that people would be able to use, those that are trained. Very few of them employ psychologists, especially occupational and clinical psychologists who would be able to identify those problems. So they don't have them.
I would not know that maybe you're diabetic, you're having a stomach ache, because sometimes the symptoms, you are feeling it, maybe they are not visible for everyone to see.
We know that when people get mentally injured, which can be depression, stress,
we don't really take it seriously as individuals.
What tends to happen is that if you've got a mental health problem, it tends to present itself in physical health as well. It could be headache, it could be lack of power and dizziness and all the other symptoms that are associated with mental health. So most people tend to go to a medical doctor when they have that. And sometimes medical doctors may not be able to identify that it's actually a mental health issue. So they'll prescribe medication for a physical problem, which is actually a mental problem.
Most workplace areas or management or HR departments have focused on the physical health and neglected totally the physical health and the social health. But we are now saying that we need to look at the total package. The physical, it must be looked at. This is where we've got things like your BP, your HIV, your treatment of infections, your diarrhea and things like that. But why we should not neglect the mental, which has to do with your emotions, how you think, how somebody behaves.
What we are observing of late is that some organizations, what they're doing is that they are really reaching out to psychologists for help in terms of actually going there to educate people, their staff on mental health. That will be the starting point, because the problem is there are so many people who are suffering from mental health just on the basis of that study that we did. And also on the basis of international studies, you notice that there are so many people suffering from mental health, but they don't want to come out in the open because of stigma, because also they don't know that what is presenting, the symptoms that they are experiencing are actually mental health problems.
We may have someone whose thought patterns, they seem to just lose concentration. You're in the middle of a meeting and you then ask them something, they just seem to continually lose their concentration, which is also something that could be coming up as a new behavior. It's not an old behavior as you have known this person.
Akakosha kana nyika ichida kumutsidzira upfumi hwayo.
Mina ngakhetha ibuilding ukuba omama abalutshwane omama abayakhayo. Mina ngiyagraduate besifunda siqalise isikolo last year. Iprogram yami ngaziqalisela yona ngaqalisa ukuthatha abadala back to school ukuthi baqalise ukufunda from ku primary.
Umwe avo vaidzidza mabasa emaoko ishenduve vekuinsiza vanoti zvidzidzo izvi zvichabatsira vechidiki kuti vasiye zvinodhaka. Vadzidzi vanosvika 263 vakawaniswa zvitupa zvavo. Ndini Providence Maranelli, mutori wenhau weZBC News, ndiri kuinsiza.
Kanzuru inoona nezvetsika, magariro nemitambo yeAfrican Union Sports Council Region 5 yakaita mhemberero dzekucherechedza kukosha kwetsika nemagariro zvakatsaukana muHarare nemusi wechishanu manheru. Wellington Makonese anotipa nyaya iyi.
Chikamu cheAfrican Union Sports Council Region 5 chiri kutarisira kusanganisa mitambo pamwe chete netsika nemagariro kuburikidza nechirongwa chakaita cheCulture Night. Vanga vakamirira muteedzeri wemutungamiriri wenyika Vice President Kembo Mohadi, Professor Paul Mavhima vakati ivo chirongwa ichi chakakosha zvikuru pakubatanidza Africa uyezve chiripo pakuyeuchidza vechidiki kukosha kwakaita tsika nemagariro evanhu vemuAfrica. Zvichakadaro, sachigaro weAfrican Union Sports Council Region 5 Council of Ministers Honorable Agnes Chongarero vakati chikamu cheCulture Night ndeimwe yenzira yekubatanidza Africa uyezve kukoshesa nyaya dzekushanyirana kwenyika tourism. Chirongwa cheCulture Night icho chiri pagore rekutanga chakaona vanhu vachiita mitambo yakatsaukana inosanganisira kuimba, kupfeka zviratidzwa zvenyika dzakasiyana pamwe chete nekutamba. Ndini Wellington Makonese, mutori wenhau weZBC, ndiri muHarare.
Vanhu vanopfuura 500 kuchibhala kuwange vakabatsirikana nechirongwa chekurapwa pachena chaikotsverwa nekambani yewange Collier nemusi wechishanu. Muhlomuli Ncube anotipa zvizere.
Vanhu vanosvika ivo 500 kana kupfuura vakabatsirwa pasi pechirongwa ichi. Vakabatsirwa ava vakarapwa apo pavaive nematambudziko emaziso uye vamwe zvekare vachitariswa kuti vangave nekensa here, vamwe zvekare vachitariswa kuti vangave nechirwere cheBP. Vanhu vese ava vakauya kuzobatsirwa apa vakati ivo izvi zvakakosha zvikuru uye vakafarira rubatsiro rwavakapiwa urwu.
Ndoti muzviwana nasi Mwari wangwinira ndaunakirwa ikore ari yaizvakotishantira muzviwana yatipa maglazi nasi ndakwanisa kuvala mavara matukutuku nechipimo chokuti vinifoni ngwendo ndovelingisisa zvigodo namavara matukutuku
kuti nzimwachita nzipati nzimwachita kuno chete kupera ndaluza ABB ndalumba siviri kapati.
Mutungamiri wenyika yemuZimbabwe President Emmerson Mnangagwa vanogara vachikurudzira makambani anoita zvezvicherwa munzvimbo yemuhwange kuti ange achishanda nevanhu vanogara munzvimbo dzavanoshandira munzvimbo iyi yemuhwange. Hurumende ndiyo inova iyo mukuru iye akabata chikamu chikuru pakambani yeHwange Colliery uye inoramba ichikurudzira kuti vanhu vese vanofanirwa kunge vane utano. Ndini Mhlomuli Ncube, mutori wenhau weZBC News, ndiri muHwange.
Mukuru wesvondo yeBethsaida Apostolic Mushakabvu Archbishop Lovelace Matarirano Manango avo vakashaya musi wa5 mwedzi uno vakaradzikwa nezuro kumusha kwavo kunjanja kunharaunda yeChikomba. Ngatinzwei zvakawanda kubva kuna Gerald Sasa.
Archbishop Manango avo vakashaya vave nemakore 104 vakavigwa pachiwiriro kumuzinda wekumusha kwavo kuChikomba muMashonaland East pagungano rakange rine vanhu vakawanda zvikuru vanosanganisira vemhuri vesvondo yeBethsaida Church, mamwe masangano pamwe nevakuru vehurumende. Vamanango vatsanangurwa semunhu aive nechido mumhuri yavo pamwe nesvondo yeBethsaida.
Archbishop mazuva ekupedzesera havana kurasa kunamata shoko ravo guru raingoti maine shambe ndoenda ndega here uchisara ndikati mwega bedu ondamukana ndigochengeta vanhu.
Munhu watiita kuti pano munhu mukuru 70 years of a life uchiita zvechechi haisi yekutamba nayo.
Mabasa akaitwa navamanango kusimudzira runyararo munyika pamwe nebudiriro akataurwawo zvakare nevakuru vakange vari parufuru.
Baba vamanango kana munyaya dzematongerwo enyika vakafamba nadzo. President vakaona zvakakodzera kuti mukuchengetwa mababa vedu ruoko rwavo rusvike.
Vanhu vari pano vari kuteera basa rakanaka rakaitwa naMwari. Murume ari pano igamba mazviro kwazvo kana taakutaura zvemweya.
Tichachema asi tichachema tine tariro yekuti temberi tichaivaka ichipera.
Archbishop Manango avo vakapiwa rufu rwakabatsirwa nenyika vakatanga chechi yeBethsaida Apostolic Church muna 1952 uye pari zvino imwe yemamwe machechi mahombe munyika yeZimbabwe. Ndini Gerald Sasa, mutapiwa weZBC News, ndiri kuChikomba.
Pari zvino tava kumbokudzoserai kuMount Upton uko kuri kuitwa musangano weSADC Council of Ministers. Lucy Ngosolo naMonica Chanda vachitipa zviri kuitika.
Thank you, studio. Once again, we're bringing you live from the new Parliament building in Mount Hampton, where the extraordinary SADC Summit of Heads of State and Government is taking place. And we are giving you the schedule of the summit as it takes place. And we do know that at this point in time, SADC Secretariat, led by the Executive Secretary of SADC, His Excellency Mr. Elias Mahosi, is already in the building. building alongside other members of the SADC Secretariat. We also have our Foreign Affairs and International Trade Minister, Professor Amon Murwira, who is also here, as well as other Foreign Affairs Ministers from the SADC bloc. The Minister of Defense, Honorable Opam Chinguri, who is also part of the ministerial delegation, as well as a high-profile delegation who are here for this extraordinary SADC summit, Lucy. And it is, of course, going to be quite an evening of proceedings.
Yeah, Mulia Zimbabwe suqala njalo umhlangano njengoba besilitshelile ukuthi ukhona omnye umhlangano ozaqala njalo namhlanje ntambama khonapha ngase Mount Hampton lapho kuzaqhutshwa khona umhlangano owe-Ministerial Committee on SADC Organ on Politics, Defense and Security Cooperation. Yiwo ke osuqala kathesi sibona ke ukuthi sebefikile ke abaqhakathekileyo amanxusa aqhakathekileyo kulumhlangano abagoqela bona umkhokheli ke we-Secretariat umnumzana Elias Mahosi sefikile ka ekhokhela ke enye i-Secretariat khonapha ngase Mount Hampton. Sebefikile ke amaphathintambo ababona ngezokudlelana kwamanye amazwe khonapha ke eSADC bekhokhelwa ke ngomphathintambo wakuleli uProfessor Amon Murwira. Ukhona njalo umphathintambo obona ngezomvikela kuleli uComrade Opam Chinguri Kashiri laye usefikile khonapha emhlanganweni takhamirira kuthanga kwemusangano uyo wava kuthanga iko zvino se zvatambotaura kuti musangano umwe uchange uchienderera mberi manheru anhasi uye musachigaro wemusangano uri kuitwa manheru anhasi inyika yeTanzania apo kuri kutariswa nyaya dzakaita senyaya dzekudzivirirwa kwenyika, runyararo pamwe chete nekuona kuti pane kudyidzana kwakanaka pakati penyika dzemuSADC. Uye tiri kutarisa zvakare tichiona kuti vakuru vakakokwa kumusangano uyu vasvika vanosanganisira makurukota anoona nezvekudyidzana kwenyika dzakasiyana-siyana muSADC vatosvika vachitungamirirwa ivo negurukota remuno rinoona nezvekudyidzana kwenyika yeZimbabwe nedzimwe nyika nekutengeserana. Professor Amon Murwira vatosvika varipo zvakare gurukota rinoona nezvekudzivirirwa kwenyika yeZimbabwe Comrade Opam Chinguri Kashiri vatosvika zvekare. Tichitarisa zvakare kuti Secretariat yatosvika ichiperekedzwa ichitungamirwa nemukuru Elias Mahosi vatosvika pano kwamirira kungoti musangano uchitanga iko zvinomoneka.
And of course, Lucy, speaking to that meeting of the Ministerial Committee on the SADC Organ on Politics, Defense and Security Cooperation, which you did say that it will be taking place in a short while. So this is also coming after the conclusion of the first indaba that took place earlier in the morning, where we saw senior officials of the Ministerial Committee of the organ also deliberating, and of course preparation of documents that went underway, and looking to what is scheduled to happen in this particular indaba. We should expect those remarks coming in from the SADC Executive Secretary, His Excellency Mr. Elias Mahosi. He will be giving those welcome remarks, and this will also be followed by some of those also remarks by the Honorable Ambassador Mahmoud Tabita Kombo, Minister of Foreign Affairs and East African Cooperation of the United Republic of Tanzania. He also happens to be the chairperson of the Ministerial Committee of the organ. So of course, with the SADC Extraordinary Summit of Heads of State and Government, issues of peace and security as well as cooperation, looking obviously to the SADC mission, especially when it comes to issues of security in the region, stability issues in the region, also coming on the backdrop of some of those disturbances that have been happening in the eastern parts of the DRC, and with that SADC mission mandate coming to an end this December, it will also look to see what is to transpire. But obviously they should be looking into the review of some of those elections that took place in the region, given there were elections in Botswana, there were elections in Mozambique, and there are also preparations in Mauritius as well, and preparations preparations for elections that will be taking place in Namibia. And with some of the issues with regard some disturbances that had also taken place in Mozambique earlier that had to be looked into by the SADC bloc in areas of Cabo Delgado. We will look to see what more will be brought on the cards. And we do know that when it comes to regional integration, when it comes to issues of trade, peace and security play a very critical role.
Ndizvo Monica, ndizvo chaizvo zviri kutaurwa pano kuti musangano SADC Extraordinary Summit uyu uri kuda kutarisa nyaya dzakawanda zvikuru sei kuchitariswa nyaya dzine chekuita nedziviriro yenyika, kudziviririka kwenyika, runyararo, kudyidzana kwakanaka munyika dzirimo SADC. Zvikuru kwakatariswa zvakare nyika yeDemocratic Republic of Congo apo pari kutariswa kuti pane chikwata kana kuti iyo mission SADC mission yakatumwa kuti inogadzirisa kana kuti inotarisa zviri kuitika ku DRC ikoko kuti zvingaitwa, kudyidzana kwacho kungafambiswa sei, ukudlelwana kwakhona, ukukhomisana komlota kungahambiswa ngendlela enjani ukuze kube lokuthula ke emazweni wona lawa ase-SADC. Zinengi ke indaba ezikhangelelweyo ukuthi zizakhulunywa. Kukhona njalo indaba ezigoqela ke ukhetho olusanda kuqhutshwa ngaselizweni laseMozambique ukuthi kuke kwaba lokungahlaliseki kancane. Ngokunjalo ngolunye ke lodaba oluzakhulunywa khonapha emhlanganweni yona leyi ezaqhubekela phambili, yona eqaleke namhlanje ekuseni ukuzaqhubeka phambili kusiyabamba ke ngolwesithathu, lapho esikhangele khona ukuthi ngolwesithathu kuzabe sokuthe gwaqa inkokheli zamazwe ama-heads of state and government bayabe sebebuthene ke ngolwesithathu on Wednesday, lapho abazake bekhulumisana besamukela ke lokho okukhulunywe ngakho zvinenge zvataurwa kubva muzivana nasi. Monica, ndizvo zvinenge zvakuvaka vatungamiri vedzinyika vakuzvitarisa nemusi weWednesday pavanenge vaungana vese kubva kunyika dzemuSADC apo panenge pachitariswa zvakasiyana siyana izvozvi zvinosanganisira nyaya dzerunyararo kunyanya. Ndosaka Extraordinary Summit iyi iripo nenyaya yekuti nyika dzemuSADC dzinofanira kunge dziine runyararo.
Oh, you could say that again, Lucy. That mandate on peace and security is really critical, and also coming at a time where with the regional bloc boosting its economic prowess. And you'll find that the region does boast of mineral resources, vast mineral resources. If you are to look at some of those, you speak of your gold, your platinum, your cobalt, you speak of your lithium, platinum deposits in different parts of the region, and with various agricultural activities. Take a look at Zimbabwe, which has various agricultural activities. It is then essential that the regional bloc fosters on regional cooperation and also ensures that the issues of peace and security are crucial at this point in time. And also by harnessing those resources through the mineral beneficiation, you'll find that they will also be making use of that potential of other alternatives with regards, power development, power generation, which then boosts on production and also boosts on towards industrialization of the region. After all, even speaking to the theme of the SADC summit and even to the theme of the extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state and government, it speaks really to industrialization. So even as Zimbabwe moves closer to Vision 2030, this actually also moves intrinsically with the region, of course, the region's ambitious Vision 2050 and the regional indicative strategic development plan of 2020 to 2030. So as we get to sit and listen through to some of the conversations that will be happening in these crucial meetings, peace, security is very essential. That stability in the region is very crucial if industrialization is to happen, BC.
Mbombo Zimbabwe kuti zonse ezi iziliwambwa zichitike, kuti zonse ezi zibenzi zichitwa realized mukati ikanyika izili mu SADC ichipati nchakuti kube lumuno, nchakuti kube kujatana, nchakuti kube kuyidirana ikuboto akati ikanyika nzizezi mpimpa wawo mpali kwetwa imuswangano oyo imupati wakuti ibulidirano bube imbubo ibwinkira ikunembo ikaboto ngungo imuswangano uyikulanga izyambo.
Thank you. You may be seated, honorable ministers. And thank you, Chitungwiza Harmony Singers and St. Mary's High School Choir for the anthems. Honorable ministers, distinguished delegates, my name is Barbara Lopi from the SADC Secretariat. I'm honored to direct this opening session this evening. We are here for the extraordinary ministerial committee of the Organ on Politics, Defense and Security Cooperation, which is one of the structures of SADC, which is empowered with the responsibility of overseeing matters of peace and security in our region. Allow me to recognize our chairperson this evening, Honorable Ambassador Mahmoud Tabit Kombo, MP and Minister of Foreign Affairs for East and African Cooperation of the United Republic of Tanzania, who is also the chairperson of the Ministerial Committee of the organ. I would like also to recognize the ministers or representatives from the SADC organ Troika. We have representing the Republic of Malawi as the current incoming chairperson of the Ministerial Committee of the organ. We have Honorable Harry Mukandawiri, Minister of Defense. Representing the outgoing chairperson of the Ministerial Committee of the organ, we have Mr. Norman Chipakupaku, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Defense. I would like to recognize the honorable ministers and deputies present here. His Excellency Mr. Elias Mahose, the Executive Secretary of SADC, Ambassador Dr. Samuel William Shelukindo, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and East African Cooperation of the United Republic of Tanzania, who is the chairperson of the senior officials of the organ. Distinguished senior officials from all member states represented here, heads of security institutions, the director of the SADC organ and SADC Secretariat staff, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, once more, welcome. Our meeting this evening, the program will be as follows. We will start with the introductory remarks from the Executive Secretary of SADC, His Excellency Mr. Elias Mahosi, and then we will have the opening and welcome remarks from the chairperson, the minister from the United Republic of Tanzania. And thereafter, we will excuse our members of the media so that the meeting can proceed in closed session. At this point, allow me to invite the Executive Secretary of SADC, His Excellency Mr. Elias Mahosa, to deliver his remarks, and thereafter he will invite the Minister. Your Excellency, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our Director of Ceremony, Ms. Lopi, Honorable Ambassador Mahmoud Tabit Kombo, Minister of Foreign Affairs and East African Cooperation of the United Republic of Tanzania, the Chairperson of the Ministerial Committee of the organ, Honorable Harim Kandawire, Minister of Defense of the Republic of Malawi, representing the incoming Chairperson of the MCO, Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers of the MCO, including the new ministers that have joined the MCO, in particular Dr. Butale from Botswana, Mr. Norman Chipakupaku, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Defense of the Republic of Zambia, representing the outgoing chairperson. The chair of the senior officials, Dr. Samuel William Shelley Kindo, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and East African Cooperation of the United Republic of Tanzania. Distinguished senior officials amongst us, the chiefs of defense and security institutions, delegates of our respective member states, my colleague, the director of the organ and the team, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's a good evening now. Good evening. Allow me at the onset to express my sincere appreciation to Honorable Ambassador Kombo for convening this meeting on very short notice due to the dire need to deliberate on peace and security matters related to the situation in Eastern DRC and the SADC region at large. Similarly, allow me to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the government and the people of the Republic of Zimbabwe for hosting us in this beautiful city of Harare and for providing the necessary facilities for holding this very important meeting. Equally, I wish to register my profound appreciation to you, honorable ministers, for honoring the invitation to attend this critical meeting despite your tight schedules and competing priorities in your respective roles. Your presence at this meeting demonstrates your desire and commitment to promote and consolidate peace and security in our region. The region continues to uphold democratic principles and practices by holding regular elections. Since your last meeting in July of this year, 3 member states have held national or general elections. These member states are the Republic of Mozambique, the Republic of Botswana, and the Republic of Mauritius quite recently. I wish to commend and congratulate the people of Botswana, Mauritius, and Mozambique for exercising their constitutional and democratic right to choose their leaders through a peaceful and democratic process. As the Republic of Namibia prepares to hold their national elections on the 27th of this month, we wish the people of the country peaceful and successful elections as well. I also wish to express our sincere gratitude to the heads of the SADC electoral observation missions for the role they have played in what I consider to be an enormous and taxing undertaking of leading the observation missions during elections. Having been involved in the SADC electoral observation missions myself, I appreciate the immense challenges that come with this task, particularly to ensure that the elections are held in line with the SADC principles and guidelines governing your democratic elections. Honorable Ministers, regarding the security situation in our region, the region is generally relatively calm and stable despite isolated insecurity, particularly in Eastern DRC, where attacks on government forces and civilians by the armed groups have caused the displacement of approximately 6.4 million people countrywide, with more than 2.5 million people internally displaced within North Kivu province in the last 2 years alone. As a result of these armed attacks, the eastern part of the DRC has witnessed a dire humanitarian situation, which requires an urgent and well-concerted intervention. Since the deployment of SAMI DRC in December of last year, in support of the armed forces of the DRC and in collaboration with the DRC bilateral partners, the mission has made a significant impact in bringing relative peace and stability within its area of responsibility within North Kivu. SAMI DRC deployment remains a critical deterrent against hostile armed forces to safeguard DRC's territorial integrity. I wish to express SADC's appreciation to the member states that have contributed troops and resources to SAMI DRC. We are also pleased to note the positive developments in implementing the United Nations Resolution 2746 on MONUSCO's support to the SAMI DRC. We acknowledge the continuing efforts through the Luanda peace process, which is facilitated by His Excellency João Manuel Gonçalves Lorenzo, the President of the Republic of Angola, in his capacity as African Union champion of peace and reconciliation. For several engagements between the facilitator and the parties involved, a ceasefire was brokered on the 4th of August this year. We also note the strides made in implementing the peace process, where a constituted reinforced ad hoc verification mechanism comprising of the DRC itself, Rwanda, and the Republic of Angola was launched in Goma. The mechanism is charged with, among many others, the responsibility to oversee and monitor the implementation of the Luanda peace process by all parties, as well as report any violations to this important process. Whilst commending the forces of the DRC, the government forces of the DRC, for observing the ceasefire, we are concerned about the reported continued violation of the armistice by some armed groups and opposing forces in defiance of the very same deal. We strongly call upon all armed groups and opposing forces to cease all forms of hostilities and comply with the agreed truce. Honourable Ministers, the current SAMI DRC mandate ends next month on the 14th of December. In this regard, your meeting will consider recommendations from the Defence Subcommittee on the future of this mission and all its related implications. The recommendations were informed primarily by the report of the field assessment mission conducted in North Kivu the first week of October this year. I am confident that the decisions from your meeting today will positively impact our sister country DRC and the millions of women, girls and children who have been displaced, killed or denied their rights due to the armed conflict. In conclusion, Honourable Ministers, I wish your meeting, whose outcomes will inform both the extraordinary Troika Summit and the extraordinary summit, fruitful deliberations. With these few remarks, I have the honor of inviting the chairperson of the Ministerial Committee of the organ, Honorable Ambassador Kombo, to deliver his remarks. Thank you very much for your attention. Merci beaucoup. Muito obrigado. Asante sana. Kialebuha.
Thank you very much, Executive Secretary. Honorable Professor Amun Murirwa, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade of the Republic of Zimbabwe, and our very gracious host. Thank you very much. Honorable Representative of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Malawi, I'm told Minister of Defense is here, and as the incoming chairperson of the Ministerial Committee of the organ on Politics, Defense and Security Cooperation. Honorable Representative of Minister Haimbe Mulambo, Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Zambia and outgoing chairperson of the Ministerial Committee of the organ on Politics, Defense and Security Cooperation. Your Excellency Elias Mpedi Magosi, the SADC Executive Secretary, fellow colleagues, honorable ministers, senior officials, led by our own peers from the United Republic of Tanzania, Dr. Samuel Shelukindo, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to you all. It is my distinct honor today for the first time to chair this extraordinary meeting since assuming the chairmanship of the Ministerial Committee of the Organ on Politics, Defense and Security Cooperation, which is known as MCO. Principally, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to all of you for your presence here this evening, and apologies also for the delay in starting, because this was due to some unavoidable circumstances. But your presence here in this meeting today, despite being swarmed by exigencies of your duties at your capitals, you made it possible to be here. So thank you very much, my dear colleagues. My extended gratitude goes to the government of the Republic of Zimbabwe, through you, Honorable Professor Amon Murirwa, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, for really availing this spectacular venue. It's my second time to come to this venue. I was here last August to host this extraordinary meeting of the MCO, and the preceding meeting of our senior officials of the MCO held this morning at the same venue. We are also grateful for the warm and cordial hospitality extended to me personally and to my delegation since our arrival in this wonderful, beautiful city, and the rain added the cherry on top. While on the subject, I wish also to seize this opportunity to extend my heartfelt congratulations to Honorable Minister Murirwa following your recent appointment to the Foreign Affairs docket. I reiterate my personal commitment and that of the government of the United Republic of Tanzania in its totality to continue forging closer relations at bilateral, regional, and international levels. And I promise to continue my very friendly encounter as I did with your predecessor, Minister Shava, Frederick Shava, whom I call as a senior brother. He is now exchanged with you in higher and tertiary education ministry. Kindly convey my greetings to him and also appreciation for all his previous hospitalities extended to us and courtesies in the previous meeting. I'm sure you're going to do more than that. Excellencies, I'm well aware that there has been a couple of ministerial changes in the foreign affairs portfolios within our region. Without taking much of your time, allow me to commend and invite all the recently appointed ministers of foreign affairs to the SADC fraternity and also congratulate them, including my dear brother from Botswana. With your appointments, our resolve to maintain a peaceful, stable, and prosperous region will not wither, and we shall work very closely to bring about more strength to peace and stability in our region. It would be a remiss of me if I do not acknowledge the exemplary and solid leadership of His Excellency Haimbe Mulambo, Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Zambia and outgoing chairperson of the Ministerial Committee of the organ. Under your remarkable leadership, my dear brother, we have witnessed commendable milestones, including the successful deployment of the SADC mission in DRC since last December 2023. I'm sure his PS is going to deliver my message to Mulambo because I received his WhatsApp message today. Honorable Ministers, since assuming this chairmanship of the SADC organ in August, Tanzania has been hard on its toes to promote adherence to the principles of democracy and good governance in the region as stipulated in our protocol on politics, defense, and security cooperation. In that endeavor, Tanzania has had an opportunity to lead the SADC Electoral Observers missions to the scheduled elections in the republics of Mozambique, Botswana, and Mauritius, and currently the next following in Namibia. At this juncture, I wish to commend all these member states for successfully conducting their elections in accordance with their national legislations, as well as revised SADC principles and guidelines governing democratic relations. While the electoral processes were concluded in some member states, I understand that they are inconclusive in others. In that regard, I wish to appeal to all political stakeholders to remain calm and exercise restraint as the electoral management bodies and other relevant bodies finalize the electoral process. On a similar note, allow me also to congratulate His Excellency Daniel Chapo, President-elect of the Republic of Botswana, and His Excellency Navin Ramgoolam, Prime Minister of the Republic of Mauritius, for their electoral victories in the recently held elections. Let me also take this opportunity to wish the Republic of Namibia our very best in the forthcoming general elections scheduled 27th November. I take this opportunity also to congratulate Excellency Daniel Chapo, President of the Republic of Mozambique, and Duma Boko, President of the Republic of Botswana. Thank you. Honorable Ministers, as we all know, peace and security is the cornerstone of the integration and socio-economic development of our region and of our organization. We need to remain steadfast in ensuring that it is preserved at all costs. On that note, may I take this opportunity to take you back to the order of the day on taking stock of the ongoing efforts to restore stability in the Eastern DRC under the auspices of SAMI DRC and its mandate to expire its mandate set to expire next month of December in 2024. Before we commence our deliberations on the tabled agenda in front of us, I wish to register my sincere appreciation to all the senior officials of the MCO for their exemplary work done this morning in preparation of our current meeting, which was led by my own PS, Ambassador Dr. William Samuel Shelukindo on my right. So thank you very much to you and all your colleagues in the senior officials meeting. Indeed, we owe them a debt of gratitude for their constructive contributions that will assist us all in ensuring that our meeting proceeds smoothly. Having said that, I would also like to thank the Secretariat of SADC, led by the Executive Secretary, together with his team of directors and all the staff for the organization of this meeting. And it is my singular honor now to declare that this meeting is officially open, and I would like to invite Dr. William Samuel Shelukindo, chairperson of the senior officials of the MCO, to take us first through the draft agenda which is in front of you. The draft agenda which is in front of you, and looking forward for concrete discussions and outcome. Asante sana. I thank you all very much. Muito obrigado. Merci beaucoup. Zikomo kwambiri and tatenda jekuti. Thank you very much.
And remarks by the Honorable Ambassador Mahmoud Tabit Kombo, who is also the Minister of Foreign Affairs and East African Cooperation of the United Republic of Tanzania. He is also the chairperson of the Ministerial Committee of the organ. And with those remarks marking the beginning of what will be the meeting of the Ministerial Committee on the SADC organ on politics, defense and security cooperation, where of course there will be deliberations on what will be taking place with regard to issues of politics, security and stability in the region. And with Honorable Ambassador Mahmoud Tabit Kombo speaking to the elections that took place in the region, congratulating the countries that hosted their polls, namely Botswana, Mozambique, and of course also speaking to the upcoming elections that will be coming to the people of Namibia. And he did, however, highlight, some of those concerns, some of those disturbances that have been happening in Mozambique, which obviously they will be speaking to in their meetings, and also speaking to how critical it is, of course, for peace and security to prevail in the region. Lucy.
Ndioka matangiro emisangano iri kuitika kuno ku SADC muri yeZimbabwe. Tiri kuona kasachigaro ve committee ye ministerial committee on SADC organ on politics, defense and security. Vanova ivo of Mahmoud Kombo ndivoka vari kuti vanga vachitaura pamusoro pezviri kuitika uye vachitaura zvakare vachitarisa nyaya dzesarudzo dzakaitika kunyika dzinosanganisira Mozambique neBotswana, apo vachikorokotedza kubudirira kwakaitwa sarudzo idzodzo. Vataura zvakare vachitarisira kuti kuchafamba zvakanaka kune dzimwe nyika idzo dziri kutarisirwa kunge dzichiitawo sarudzo. Vataura zvakare pamusoro permission yeSADC iyo yakatumwa kuDRC, vachizivisa kuti basa rayo riri kufanira kunge richipera mwedzi unouya unova December watakatarisana naye. Chikwata ichi chinenge chichifanira kunge chapedza basa racho. Ndizvo zviri kuda kunge zvichizotariswa mumisangano iyoyi yatakatarisana nayo pano paMount Hampden. Tiri kuno ku New Parliament Building, apo vari kusangana vachitaura nyaya dzakasiyana. Makurukota enyika anotarisana nekudyidzana kwenyika dzakasiyana siyana muno muSADC ndivo vari mumusangano pari zvino. Yikoke okuhambela pambili sikhona ngapha muli yeZimbabwe. Okwamanje wothike silipisele ngale ngasema studios ethu ePockets Hill.
Thank you so much there to Lucy Ngosolo and Monica Chanda at Mount Hampton Parliament Building, of course, for the SADC Extraordinary Summit, which is currently underway. And of course, the deliberations there highlighting issues of security concerns within the region, however, also extending to the invaluable position that's being played by the ministerial committee organ. What we can look forward to tomorrow would be the ministerial committee organ's engagement around issues to do with finance, extending also to senior officials. And then we can look forward to the remarks of Professor Eamon Murida, who's the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, and also holds the chairpersonship of the Council of Ministers. Key areas are being highlighted during the course of these SADC Extraordinary Summit engagements. You can catch all of them live right here on ZBC TV. Take advantage of our social media platforms at ZBC in News Online. For now, that's it. Pleasant viewing.
ZBC Current Affairs, thriving for excellence and perfection in setting the agenda, shaping the Zimbabwean story and sustaining the narrative through detailed analysis and discussions, bringing to you polished live coverage of national events. We are ZBC Current Affairs, delivering to you the national budget, live parliamentary debates, independence, Heroes Day and Defense Forces events. We bring you insightful documentaries, special programs, and thought-provoking debates. ZBC Current Affairs. We are definitely Zimbabwean, telling an accurate, balanced, and unfettered Zimbabwean story.
Zim Digital set-top boxes, decoders with all the 7 local television channels and 6 national radio stations are now available for sale. The decoder will give viewers access to ZBC Jive TV, ZBC News, ZBC TV, ZTN Prime, Pre-K TV, Kiona TV, NRTV. No subscription is needed as all the channels are free to view. For $25 or the Zig equivalent, the decoder comes with a cable plus indoor and